Dr. Lexx, she, her, doctor pronouns. I'm coming to you specifically from Lenape land, and I am a PhD level sexologist and licensed marriage and family therapist. So basically, the things that I do is I educate all sorts of folks, clinicians, parents, kids, all over the world about sex positive parenting and sex positive education that doesn't have shame. So basically, everything you want to know about sex and sexuality without the feelings of feeling bad that go with them typically. Shame has been a tool that is transgenerational. It has been passed down specifically for women and girls. And people used to think that shame protected us. If I make you feel bad about it, you won't go do it. That didn't work. It's not worked. It hasn't worked for decades. And so I would really like to help specifically parents undo it. It's already in us, but we don't have to pass that shame on.
Oh my goodness, that's so beautiful and really profound. It really is because you're right. Like it didn't do much. Like shame did not stop any of us from being sexual, right? But it did make us feel really bad about it or have develop any, sometimes people develop psychological or sexual issues because they feel so shameful for something that's so, it's just so much a part of our DNA and human species, right?
Yeah, I think we rob children of pleasure because we're so afraid that they'll become some type of sexualized or hypersexualized being. So we rob them of pleasure. We tell them not to laugh too loud. We tell them that, oh, you're doing this thing. It feels too good. Don't do it. This is bad. And it's like, we're supposed to have pleasure in the world. I don't think whatever entity, whoever you believe in, put you on this planet to suffer the entire time. That doesn't make sense. And I'm a recovering Baptist from the South. So that doesn't make sense. So yes, we're supposed to have pleasure, but when it comes to sexuality, people only think of those first three letters. They just think about sex. They just specifically think about intercourse. When sexuality is all encompassing, it's being able to enjoy an ice cream because it tastes good and the coldness feels good going into your body and your belly feels full. It's being able to be exactly who you are, wearing nail polish or your hair up and not being considered fast or whorish. It's being able to form intimate relationships that you feel safe in and that you feel like you can be vulnerable and tell somebody no when they're not going to hurt you or they're not going to go beyond your boundaries. All of that is sexuality too, but we tend to pigeonhole it to just what people do with their genitals.
Well, first of all, do you have a show yet? Because you need one.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, you really do. Your energy even just like is very vibrant and jumps through. And what you're saying is really profound. Like it's a simple truth, but it's very profound. And I think a lot of us don't really put that together because we haven't been taught to, or that part of us, like you said, that we're born with the inclination to really enjoy life, right? You said the ice cream and screaming and yelling with our friends,
yeah.
but you're right. When we were taught, like, don't be too loud, be quiet, or, keep that to yourself, or, yeah,
Mhm.
there is this. Where do you think it comes from? Because I agree with you. There does seem to be something in our society that's like, don't enjoy it too much. A little bit is
Yeah.
okay, but not completely. Where does that
Yeah.
come from, and why would that be something that we want perpetuated in society?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think part of it did come from safety, right? If you're not as, and we see this in rape culture too, right? If you're not as bright and seen as the other person, you're less likely to be targeted. If you could just blend into the background, you are less likely to be abducted, harmed, bullied, whatever it is. So it's a safety precaution. The other thing is, I don't think because of our like capitalism society, adults had a lot of time, right? They didn't have a lot of time. They were trying to make ends meet. So they don't have time to deal with your big emotions. They don't have time to deal with you screaming at the top of your lungs. They don't have time to try and curtail. Children are seen and not heard. I need to be able to move through my day. I need to be able to make money so we can survive. And I need you just to go along with it. And so we minimize and we devolume, turn the volume down on children to make them more placid so they can like mold into our lives. And the harm in that is we see it, right? We feel it. I'm an older millennial. So we feel it as like, ooh, I don't know if I can use my voice here. Am I going to be perceived as a bitch or hard to work with, right? And then we see it in relationships. We see people who do not have sexual pleasure in their relationships. We see people who feel dirty in their relationships from even doing a sexual like behavior. They're like, I don't think I can do that. We see partners who see sexual behaviors, or if their partner wants to do a sexual behavior, as dirty and gross, and then they get shamed, even within the context of relationships where sex stuff is supposed to be okay. It just transcends all of our relationships. And we have this thing where we're consistently making ourselves smaller in order not to have the ball drop, to not be too joyous, because then you have to be taken down a peg. And isn't that sad to live with?
Yeah, it is. Whoa, you are speaking to some points that even I myself, I'm an older millennial too. And even I myself have in the last year, I'd say, started to really think about, where there have been these moments in my life where I'm just like, do I actually like living like this? Do I
Mm-hmm.
actually like this system in place? Because something in me says that I don't, but this is how things are, right?
Yeah,
I'm starting to
exactly.
question it, you know?
Exactly, right? Just because that's the way things have been done doesn't mean that's the way things have to continue. And that's what I really want to bring into focus. I'm trying to bridge right now this gap. I talk a lot about sex positive parenting and getting true intimacy in relationships. And I realized there was a gap between that being ourselves, giving ourselves permission not only to be sex positive for ourselves because we didn't get that. And it's okay for us to want the things we want and to not want the other things that we don't want, but to bridge the gap of, in order to give this to my children or the kids around me or to the next generation, I have to do some repair work and some reorienting of my own attitudes so I can like regurgitate those negative messages that I've been given. They don't have to be ours anymore. You don't have to swallow that and let it live in your body anymore. We destigmatize what sexuality is. Again, people get stuck on those first three letters. They think it's all about intercourse and it's all about carnality. And they miss that, sex workers, people who are providing in industries, are also providing safe spaces for folks to exist just how they are. And we don't have enough of those soft landing spaces, especially for people who are identified as men. They're providing an experience where somebody gets to be vulnerable without harsh judgment, without shaming. Some of us try and cultivate those communities for ourselves, and some of us don't have access to that community without necessarily going to a large platform or to another industry. And so the willingness to pay for it tells you how important it is. Connection is important. Being able to be seen and validated fully is important. No matter which kink flag you fly, it is really important to be able to be seen and to know that you're not alone. That's how humans thrive. We thrive in community. And so you're built a community. And of course, people are willing to pay for that.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. And it's interesting because I think that's why people hide so much of themselves when it comes to their sexuality, because of not wanting to be cast out from the group of like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I have this, and you'll get canceled or you'll be shamed. And that is so painful for us as humans because, like you mentioned, like we really thrive in community and need it.
Exactly. Right. And I think that part of my work, a beautiful favorite part, has been part of the education. People are like, whoa, I'm not the only one who thinks this, or there's a whole group of me. And I also identify as pansexual. And when that term came out and I was educating people about it, people are like, that's me too. I didn't know that this is what this was. I thought I was just a little bit weird and I didn't tell anybody about it. Huh. What a relief, right? Because we've been taught that the norm is cis, het, white. And I'm like, actually, no, there is no real normal in this work. Let's talk about what that means for you. But that sense of belonging is so helpful for folks, just so they know that they belong somewhere if they choose to be there. And that's part of the work of educating and kind of destigmatizing all of these types of platforms, that people should make a fair wage, One, this work is old as time and its existence since the beginning of time. And it has an absolute place in our society. It is legitimate, it is important, and it actually is fruit bearing because people learn things here that they can take back to their own relationships and their own people, and they get to still be whole. And that's so important that we get to be our whole selves somewhere.
Wow, it's fascinating. Yeah, this area of our life really does affect so many other areas. Um, I'm curious from your perspective because, a lot of the members on Live Jasmine, many of them have disabilities and they can't leave their homes.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is kind of their way of not only having some form of community, but a form of intimacy and connection.
Yeah.
Some members just went through a nasty divorce and they're like, I can't do relationships right now.
Congratulations on the divorce.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Absolutely. Congratulations for those folks that are surviving divorce.
Yeah, yeah, it's not easy, but again, still wanting that connection. And my question to you would be, I mean, I'm sure it's very deep, but what are some of the consequences that we face if we don't get some level of intimacy or connection in our life?
Yeah. So it is a big question. And I specifically think of people with disabilities. People typically see folks with disabilities as asexual. And not that they're self identifying their orientation as ace, meaning they don't think they're sexual at all. So we often see a huge gap in sexual education for folks with varying disabilities. Even if it's a physical, visible disability, people tend to think that it's a cognitive disability. It's not. And people tend to think that folks, whatever their body management system is, that they're not able to feel sexual pleasure. We just know that's not true. So they need sexual education, and sometimes it needs to be specialized, but they have sexual needs as well, right? Their bodies can feel pleasure too, and not just the pain. And so cognitively, they can figure out what feels good for them, and they're able to express that in whatever ways they're able to express. So it's so important. We know that humans don't thrive without touch. We see increases in depression in older folks because they are touched less as they age,
Wow.
right? Their human touch decreases. So we see an uptick in depression, and long-term depression is called dysthymia. We see an uptick in anxiety, and so people might self-isolate. They might not go out, especially coming off of COVID. We're seeing increases in agoraphobia, people not wanting to go outside at all. We're seeing increases in social anxiety. I am anxious being in spaces with other people, not just because of COVID, the disease, but because all of these people are interacting with me and I don't know what to say. I don't know how to be. I feel really strange. And so we see an uptick in a decline in mental health, basically because people aren't able to socialize and create these intimate expressions. And then we see a level of mistrust in relationships. So it's like, I don't know if I can trust you. I don't know if I want to give you all my stuff. So that person ends up withholding. And their potential partner is like, you seemed really cool at first, but now you feel kind of cold and distant. And I don't know where you are. I don't know how to connect with you. And then people doubt their own abilities to connect. Of saying like, well, I can't share this with you because then you're gonna think I'm weird. I can't share this with you because then I'm strange and you're gonna reject me and I'm unwanted. And then we've seen that level of aggression, right? The people that can't take rejection now and become violent for it because they're taking it as a comment on their personhood, saying you are nothing because I don't want you. And that's not true. Somebody rejecting you is usually just taking care of themselves. They're saying, I don't have the capacity to deal with another person right now, or I'm really not interested in engaging in this way. But for some reason, people are hearing no. They're hearing you were the scum of the earth and trash, and no one is ever going to want you. And that's such a false narrative that's simply coming from a no thanks, not right now. So we're seeing a large mental health shift and change when we're lacking those relationships and that ability to connect.
One of the biggest things I have kind of picked up on with our interview so far is that we do not feel as a society that we have permission to be our whole selves. And that's causing a lot of problems.
Yeah, absolutely. Right there on the nose. You got it.
What are the top three foundational aspects of a healthy, intimate relationship that we need?
Top three. Okay. One, we need to be able to be vulnerable.
Mhm.
And so that's a big loaded word, right? People think it's weakness. And I'm like, vulnerability is never weakness. Vulnerability is the ability to show someone your inside self and to know that it's going to land and be safe. It's not going to be weaponized against you, right? So being vulnerable means you can share secrets and you're willing to take that risk. So that's number one for intimate relationships. Number two is going to be being able to identify your own sensuality. So, sensuality meaning how you use your senses and your body and your cognition in the world for pleasure. Because if you don't know that, how do you expect a potential lover to know it? And unless we got superpowers somewhere along the way, they're not. And typically, I will say people that are socialized as women, raised as women, or femme, they tend to sacrifice this part of themselves to be good wives or good partners or good girlfriends. They sacrifice their pleasure to be like, oh, I can't say I don't like that because then the other person's ego is going to be impacted. And then they're not going to want me anymore because I made them feel bad. Meanwhile, you're in pain, you're uncomfortable, you're not looking forward to spending any type of like sexual time with a person, you're masturbating just on your own. Intimacy does that not beget? And I think third is, I always say this, so there's truth and there's honesty. The truth is your perspective, but honesty is led with that vulnerability. So sometimes you can tell somebody the truth. Oh, this really sucked. Right? That's true. It did suck. What's honest is I had a really hard time with this because I was afraid you were going to leave me.
Mm.
And that triggers my abandonment because that honesty is steeped in that vulnerability. So I guess it's kind of cyclical here, right? So I want people to live in the honesty rather than just the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think that helps get to true intimacy because I can see you, I can understand, like, oh, for you, this brings back when you were left by your dad, and that's not what I want to trigger in you. My bad. Now I get it. But thank you for being honest with me because that's what's really going on. Well, I'm really mad at you. Okay. Anger is a reactionary feeling. What's up underneath the anger? I felt disrespected. I felt unheard. I felt unseen. I felt invalidated. I felt embarrassed and belittled. And then I raged at you. But we don't tell people that part. We're just like, I'm mad at you. You pissed me off. And so I think that vulnerability, again, with that honesty and then with that sensuality, are some of the key tenets to making relationships work.
I mean, those are so profound. Like, um, okay, I have a few questions around that, those
Let's go.
three. Really, really beautiful. So, first, and I guess my first question would be for those who are like, yeah, I'm not so vulnerable. What's one tip that can help people learn or lean in the direction of being more vulnerable in their lives altogether? Because I think you're right. Like, being vulnerable is not just with intimate partners. This is like our whole life for life satisfaction. But some people they have a hard time being vulnerable because said it means weakness or it means susceptible to attack, and so I'm curious, what is like one tip to move in the right direction of becoming vulnerable?
We have to litmus test who we're trusting.
Mm.
Right? So you're not going to go be vulnerable with every Tom, Dick, and Harry on the street. You don't know them. They don't need to know you that way. Right? So I want to litmus test. I want to say something that is top surface level, right? I'm not going to deep scuba dive with somebody I don't know who I don't think I can trust. But what I want to do is I want to give them a surface level information. You know what? I am really a Trekkie. I love Star Trek. Give me Aurora and, Spock any day and see what that person does with that information. Right? Are they going to be lit up? Are they encouraging you? Do they want to know more? Or they're like, ew, why would you like something like that? Or are they poo-pooing it? That might not be a safe person for you. This is not a person that you're going to be able to be as vulnerable with and share your deepest and hardest. Do they weaponize it against you before? Oh yeah, Lex the Star Trek fan. You're like, oh. And does that make you feel good? No. So that person is not trustworthy. So start to litmus test trusting. Who do you trust? Who's in your inner circle? Who can you like actually be cheered on by, and who supports your interest? And this is hard because that model hasn't always been like our parents or the people who raised us, because they're like, oh, well, that's weird. You don't need to like that. I want you to be able to fit in. Leave this aside. You should like this thing, right? So sometimes we don't have models for actual secure attachments that we can make to people.
I think that's really great. It's basically knowing, appropriately assigning who is safe and who is not to share yourself further. And that's true. And that is a really key part of emotional intelligence, is understanding, who is it appropriate to share this aspect of me with and who is it not. Because that leads to safety and yeah. So then moving on to the second one, getting to know your own sensuality and yourself in that way, for those, because it's true. Like, I think many people are just like, okay, sex means, a man and a woman come together and they're married and that's it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that's what sex means. And
absolutely.
they don't know themselves intimately. What's the first step there when it's just like, oh, I thought sex just meant this, but yeah, sometimes I'm turned on by this and I don't know what that means, you know?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I think from a very young age, we're taught to betray our bodies.
Mm, wow.
We
Yeah.
are taught that you're still hungry, eat more. You're not full yet. It's like, no, actually, I'm done eating. I'm good. But we're not taught to listen to that. Well, you can go further, run farther, run faster. No, like I'm exhausted. And we're taught to betray our bodies. So I think it's starting to listen to our bodies and honoring, like, actually, you do need rest. Yes, you want to go to the gym. Yes, you're pushing yourself. Sure, it's your New Year's resolution, whatever. You're also really tired. What would it be like to just nap and honor that right now? And so when it comes to sexuality, I tell people, do you know which side of your clitoris or which side of your penis, which side of whatever your genitals is most sensitive? Can you tell me right now? If you don't, you have some homework to do in exploration. And so taking the time to figure out what actually feels good against your body, so you can tell someone else, this feels really good. I don't like this. This actually is really uncomfortable. You don't know unless you find out first, and giving people permission to find out what they actually like: speed, pressure, temperature. All of that's going to be important for you. So you can express it and eventually share that with someone else. So you might have some homework to do if you don't know which side of your genitals is going to be more sensitive than the other.
Yeah, it's, pretty much what I heard you say is know yourself and honor what you learn. Because, yeah, maybe you don't know, but, learning and exploring yourself, if we can't, you're so right. It's like, if we can't even be intimate with ourselves, how could we truly have a fulfilling, intimate relationship with someone else when we don't even know ourselves? Like, that is like our first place to start. Like, know yourself and honor, like you said, because it's so true. I think we all have been raised to betray ourselves, eat more. No, I know you don't feel well, but you have to perform because
Mm-hmm.
people are writing on this.
Yep.
Um, or not wanting to disappoint a parent, even though doing what they want us to do means that we're doing something that feels really bad for us.
Yep.
That
Or
is
that didn't really hurt. You're okay. Get up.
right.
No, it hurt. Like
Yeah,
my knee is burning. What do you mean it didn't hurt? But now I know I can't tell. You're lying to me, one. And two, I don't know if I can tell you if things really hurt me.
right.
So yes, absolutely.
My next question would be to touch on the final component that you listed as top three. How do we become more honest? with our partners and with ourselves instead of just
Yeah.
pissed off. How do we look at why? Why am I really, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So what's great is in therapy, right? And I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. So my therapy modalities are a little bit different than like social workers or counselors. I look at whole systems of people. So in my nerdism, my background is in physics. I see people as constellations, right? So you're a star system. Who is in your orbit, right? And where did you get things from? Where do you get to shine? And where do you dull yourself? And who is closest to you and who needs to move is basically how I see things in my head. So that being said,
Profound, by the way. Please continue.
thank you. It's my own like nerdism. I love it. But the thing with that vulnerability and that honesty piece is, one, where is it safe? And two, we never ask why, we ask what. What happened? So you were really angry. What happened first? If anger is a fire, because it gets people away from you, it can hurt people, it can burn. Some people feel their bodies get hot. You might even get sweaty, right? You feel fire in your chest or in your belly. Fire always needs fuel.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's the fuel that is filling up that fire? What is feeding it? And sometimes that's rejection. Sometimes that's not feeling good enough. Sometimes that's feeling called out and embarrassed. And so that's when I want to say, okay, you're really angry. What happened? Not the situation, not the context, not the story, but the process inside of yourself. How did your body feel? When was the first time you felt your body feel like that?
My follow-up question to that was going to be, when we find the fuel, then what? What do we do once
Mm-hmm.
we find that thing that's fueling it? Where do we go? What do we do? How do we handle it?
Yeah, I think it's really based on the behavior that comes from it. Are you satisfied with the behavior? Are you going to give yourself permission? So we live in capitalism, and it seems like there's never enough time to really go through it, right? Because you need to make money. Other people are counting on you. There are other things to do, which is specifically very Americanized culture. And it's, are you going to be able to perform at the best of your ability with this thing?
No. Usually no.
Right. It might suck, right? Or it might take a lot of extra energy. So with this thing is you can examine it. It might help knowing where it came from. You might have to do a reality check and be like, wait, I'm no longer that 10-year-old kid. You
Mm-hmm.
might have to do that pep talk of like, no, I am very much wanted and in demand. I do have people who really like love me and care for me and see me. Or you might have to do some type of behavioral change, right? And be like, I landed here again. I don't like it here. Maybe I need a therapist. Maybe I need medication. Maybe I need to, move my body in different ways. Maybe I shouldn't eat this way because I feel really crappy after I do eat this way. So, how can I change so I feel better? And figuring out what those solutions, and maybe it's a whole like smorgasbord of all those things together to help you with that behavior change, attitude change, adjustment. And sometimes you just need to wallow. Sometimes you need to give yourself permission to be like, this sucked. I don't have energy for anything else today. I'm going to, Netflix, Lifetime movie it, cry, whatever it is. And give yourself that pity party and let yourself like really feel that sadness. It's okay to be sad. You have that permission. It's a normal feeling.
Yeah, I definitely I lean towards believing that we really need to feel our feelings, the good and the bad, like they need to get through. So
Mm-hmm.
feel it so that it can leave as well. Because when you just push it down, it's still there. And I truly
Mm-hmm.
believe it will manifest somewhere, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's also beautiful. And really what I heard you say, like if I were to just put it in a sentence, is know yourself enough to know who to trust and be honest with yourself and honor what you're feeling and what you need. But in order to know what you need and what you're feeling, you have to be in touch with yourself. You know what I mean? It's like you said,
Yeah. Yep.
cyclical
It's
thing.
right. Right. And I think it's learning, right? You're going to learn who to trust, but you have to learn to trust yourself first. Because I told you, we're taught to betray ourselves very early.
Yes, 100%, 100%.
How many times do you do that? You're like, oh, no, that's not really what this was. Or no, like, I'm okay. And then you realize, like, I'm really not okay.
Mhm.
So you have to believe yourself first. You get the same grace you would extend to others.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Give yourself the same grace you'd extend to others. That should be a tagline for you. It's beautiful. The three things that you said build a healthy, intimate life: vulnerability, self exploration, essentially, and honoring that, and honesty. Those are the three things that I have heard from members that, for whatever reason, they feel like they can explore this fantasy with the model, but not their wife.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, they feel safe telling the model their deepest, darkest secret, but not their best friend.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, they feel like it's okay for them to admit their faults and be honest about different things with the model, but not their family. And I'm wondering, in your opinion, why do people feel safer in this online space and not in their day-to-day space?
Oh yeah. So there's accountability there, right? So I have to look at my wife every day in the face. And if my wife rejects this part of me, she's still gonna be my wife tomorrow and the next day and the next day. If Sam, the cam girl, rejects me, maybe Samantha, the cam girl, won't. Right. Or maybe they'll just all kind of accept me and I don't have to see them again if I don't want to. So there's some control over that. Same with my best friend. If I let them know this part of myself, they might judge me, shame me, not want me. And whatever that deepest part of themselves that people are used to keeping secret, they've already experienced some shame around it.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's societal, whether it's from a book, the news, whatever, they've
Mhm.
already known this isn't okay to say out loud.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
have to find the safest place, furthest away from the other people who will always like know this, consider me accountable for it. So I can put it here. I can compartmentalize it here. And it is safer here because it's not going to go anywhere. Same thing with therapy, right? I don't tell anybody what my clients are saying to me. So outside of like, suicidal ideation and wanting to murder somebody, there's not much I can say. And so that's why people tend to like land with therapists and like leave us with their stuff because it's safer there. And so I think that people use Cami Life the same way. It's a human interaction. It's something I can control. If I never sign back on, my camp girl is not going to come to my house. She's not going to contact my partner or my best friend, right? She's just going to be there and she's going to be a conduit to hold this information. Also, I don't lose respect for these other people.
I think you're right that some members have just basically found this to be a safe place for certain things, exploration, vulnerability, that they know it's not going to leak into their day-to-day life, which they don't yet feel is a safe place for those things.
Exactly. Pleasure is your birthright. And as long as it is consensual with adults, have fun. Do whatever you want. As long as it is consensual and with adults, go for it. That's exactly what you were put here for, is to have pleasure. And if you find somebody else that wants to have pleasure with you, bee's knees, chef kiss. Do all of the things. Do all of the things. And go find somebody to help you do them safely if you don't know how, right? So you have that option, but people haven't been given that permission. And they definitely haven't given the permission to talk about it with their significant other. Like, I can't even bring this up. They're going to think I'm just this depraved animal. Meanwhile, it is one of their number one fantasies. I'm like, I would love to do this, but I'm too shy to bring it up. I don't know what to say.
It's crazy to just, I'm just realizing how much fear is like, making us handicap in our lives. Like, I'm too afraid to share this. But what if you did? And what if that person, like you said, that was their number one fantasy? Like, if we could let go of some of the fear, it seems as though we'd live much fuller lives.
That's my hope. That is my hope, that lovers can live in places of bliss and pleasure and intimacy and connectedness, right? Even through the hard, because the world is hard.
Mhm.
I hope loverships are soft places where people can land. And one of the things that I always say is that I want my grandkids to talk about my lover and I's relationship with fondness, right? I want my grandkids to be like, Mimi and Pop Pop. That's the type of relationship I want. And that's what I want to model. And that's what I want to embody. So even my kids now, who I call trolls, are 4 and 5 and 6 months. And so every time my lover and I hug, my 4 and 5-year-old run over. They're like, "Are we giving affection? Let's share affection." And we're like, "Oh, here they come." But they're like, "Yes, we can all have affection. Let's do it." Get away from us. We just want affection ourselves.
That's beautiful though. Like affection, you know what I mean? They're being trained. Like I go towards affection, you know? That's good.
Exactly. And it's a natural part, right? It's a natural thing that, like, yes, we do share affection with people we care about. Absolutely. Because we've all seen those relationships where it looks like partners are roommates.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas, like, my parents never kissed in front of me. I didn't know what that was, or they never held hands. And, like, oh, huh. So, how do you show affection? I don't. And now we're in therapy because your partner says you're not affectionate enough.
Right. Yeah. You know, I really like what you said, which is like, there's so much hard in life. Life is hard, and it's true. Um, and yet, you know, you hope that lovers can have that soft place for each other, no matter what that looks like, as long as, like you said, consensual adults, no harm is taking place, whatever that looks like, it does not matter. And we as
Mhm.
society need to get to a place where we let people do them and we do us. You know what I mean?
Yes.
As
Be
long
so
as,
busy minding your own business, you don't know what
yeah,
other people are
right?
doing.
Exactly. None of your business. But as long as it's like at that soft place, I think that's so profound and so beautiful. And my final question to you would be, what are some action steps that we can take in society to move forward in the direction where
Mm.
lovers are having this soft place, whether it's lovers who have a relationship that's completely online, or it's lovers that have, I don't know, 5 people involved. Like, I don't,
Mhm.
whatever it is, like, it
Yeah.
does not matter. How do we make love our
Mm.
soft landing place again?
Ooh, that's a great question. Which also is why I use lovership, right? Because it can be 2, it can be 4. I don't really care, as long as it's caring between folks. But as a society, I think we also have to remember that we're society, like us, the people.
Yes, yes.
We're society. People are like society, like this thing. Like, no, that's us.
Right.
That's
Yes.
that's all of us. Being so busy, you're finding your own happy. What does that mean? What does that mean for you? And you're defining it and then you're modeling it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for
Yay.
such a profound interview.
Super easy. Thank you for making it so easy.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, you are profound, incredible. The world needs your medicine.
We're trying every day, right? We're trying. And so you're doing this, which is super helpful. I'm
Thank you.
I'm so like excited. I know some of the other people you've interviewed, so I'm glad that this worked out. But this is wonderful. I could not, do a better thing. So thank you.
Thank you.